Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Well, we've got scorching heat and we've got a cooling of temperatures in the Middle East as apparently we have peace in our time. And that was the shortest World War III I've ever seen in my life. We've got a lot to talk about, as well as some Supreme Court decisions just in the rearview mirror from yesterday and big ones coming up this week. We'll talk at 6:35 to Vaughn Spikoski from Heritage Foundation. 7:05 will bring us Gila Franklin Siegel of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. At 7:35, our man in Israel, but now back home safe and sound, Matthew Foldy. And then at 8:35, Representative Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. I had a late night, Julie, with a lot of talking. You know, usually I go into radio silence at night. I know people think I'm talking all the time. I hit a wall at the end of the day, late afternoon. I'm sure you're the same, where you just stop talking. I mean, you scream at your sons a lot, I know, and your husband. But in general, I don't do a whole lot of talking late in the day.
Has Darren been texting you again?
Yeah, she's doing it again. It's really more of a cry for help.
Yes.
So I was out.
You
just stop. You shut down. It's like, enough. I don't want to talk about it. And last night we had a 2-hour candidates forum in Fairfax, Virginia, for the Republican nomination for this open seat, the 11th district. And
exciting.
How'd
it go?
It was great slate of candidates. You know, I was reflecting on the fact.
Who's your favorite? Just kidding.
Mike Van Meter. I can't tell you who my favorite is, and I'm not voting, so that's why it made me the perfect moderator.
Right, exactly.
I know the issues, but I don't have a vested interest directly in it. So, Mike Van Meter, who was the nominee last time around, reflected on this. He said, last time I was the only guy, and they sort of had to beg me to run. Because that's the thing, you're running against a Jerry Connolly or a Don Beyer, and they're 10-term incumbents, and it's like, and it's a D+18 district, and it's pulling teeth trying to get anybody to just fill the slot as the Republican nominee, and oftentimes there's no primary process at all. Here you've got an open seat, special election in September, not in November when everyone's coming out. People underestimate the power of the get out the vote effort of these Democrats in these locked in districts, where if in November, because of the gubernatorial race, anybody down ticket, they're benefiting from all those other candidates who are getting out the vote, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general. Presidential years, you're benefiting from those get out the vote efforts. So you may show up to vote for president, or the one thing that you are really motivated in, but while you're there, I'll just do straight party line for everything else.
Right.
That's often how it happens here. Now you've got an opportunity in September where it's just one race on the ticket, standalone, the 11th Congressional District of Virginia. No one up ticket, no one down ticket. And this is truly about the passion of the voters. And because of that opportunity, and for the first time in over a decade, Republicans will not be running against an incumbent. So there's something like 10 Democrats vying for this nomination because they know that once they're in, right?
Forever.
And Republicans had a slate of 7 candidates. 6 of them were there. One of them is on vacation with his family, which you've got to respect. He's like, guys, I was not planning on this. I've got a big family vacation. So this is, it's a big deal, and it's a slate of great candidates. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this Saturday at the Firehouse primary. It's at Fairfax High School. All the information is on the Fairfax County Republican Party's website. But it was great. I was honored to be asked to moderate this. And our buddy Vince Colonnese, our colleague here at WMAL, he did a similar forum on Sunday. So,
well, I tell you, I think that people in Fairfax are totally fed up. We talked to Katie Gorka yesterday about this. And by the way, she's, the head of the Republican Party there. She is incredible and a great organizer and just a force for good in Fairfax. But we talked to her yesterday, and I think people in Fairfax are really fed up, whether it's the constant increase in taxes, the absolute embarrassment that is the schools in Fairfax, the immigration issues, the sort of commitment not to engage with ICE, Steve Descano, the prosecutor there, letting people go. And people are just done. So I think there are persuadable independents and persuadable Democrats who might consider, in this special election, hey, let's try something new.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, in my opening remarks, I sort of paralleled the growth of our show and our radio station here in this area with a political concern for a Republican. It's hard to win a seat in a heavily Democrat area when you're a conservative Republican. It's hard to build a conservative talk radio show in that same area. But we have, and it's because we don't always talk party. It's not a Republican radio show that we do, Julie. It's about the issues. And it's funny, when you start talking about the issues in a very real way with people, about what matters most to you, you find out that a lot of times what matters most to you is what matters most to your neighbor. And before you know it, they're going to discover they're a Republican too. They just didn't know it because, well, their factory setting right out of the box from the manufacturer was Democrat because, well, everyone's a Democrat here, right? I love the people who say, well, my grandfather was a Democrat and my father was a Democrat. It's like, okay, dude, well,
that
this
probably
isn't
means
like
he's
being
a Republican by
Redskins fan.
today's standards.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me why.
Yeah.
Why was your grandfather a Democrat, and I'll explain why you're now
was your
a
grandfather
Republican.
totally fine with men walking into women's bathrooms? I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. So, and to that end, I mean, it was a very interesting and I thought exciting, a great turnout. Hundreds of people turned out. I think it was just for the free air conditioning. But still, they heard their candidates. The candidates all looked great, and I kept trying to orient the questions, as you just said. The issues with the schools in Fairfax and law and order and crime in the streets and cooperating with ICE. I kept having to say, these are the issues that matter. From your position as a congressman in Washington, D.C., how will you be able to leverage that role back to the district? Because a lot of the issues you think, it's like, if this is really what you're motivated about, maybe you should run for county supervisor. Maybe you should run for school board or city council. That's the challenge for members of the House of Representatives to look at those issues that matter most and figure out how you can affect them from Congress.
Yeah, but let's not forget, they can investigate some of the money, Soros, and who's funding these prosecutors, and who's funding these activists that go into schools, because we know some of this trans activism and this racial division that is in our public schools is being funded by Soros and by other organizations. We've seen this now with Doge exposing some of this stuff. So there is a role for Congress in exposing sort of the power and where all of this stuff is coming from and why it's so hard to push back on it, because it's not grassroots in Fairfax. It's coming from California.
That's right. It is coming from California. In fact, California is influencing Fairfax County these days politically more than Washington, D.C. is, and Washington, D.C. is right across the river. As I said last night, imagine having a congressman in the 11th District that chooses not to go to war with the White House, but instead can cooperate with the White House and actually can work with the President of the United States. Even more so, if there is a Democrat again elected to the White House, imagine having a congressman in the 11th District of Virginia that a Democrat president doesn't take for granted. You're a Democrat and you're in the White House. You don't have to worry about Fairfax County. Oh yeah, those guys, we don't have to do anything nice for them. We already got them in our back pocket. Imagine actually having to earn the respect and the attention of the congressman there. That's the power of this election, and it'll be exciting to see what happens this Saturday, June 28th. It's 9 to 4 at Fairfax High School. That's the Firehouse primary. There is early voting for one day only at the Fairfax Government Building on Friday. Get that information at the Fairfax County website, fairfaxgop.org. That said, let's talk about the heat wave that we're in the middle of, and we're also going to talk about the peace deal out of the Middle East and other huge stories going on right now. It's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Yeah, I'm not used to a heat wave in June. Usually we get this kind of temperature in mid-August. That's why Congress always takes recess in August, right?
That's right.
Because that's
It's a
when
throwback.
most unbearable here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well, it's a throwback to, and this happened in New York as well. You had all these sort of family camps surrounding New York where the families would go during the week and the dads would join. This is like very 1950s. Same in Washington. I mean, Washington is a swamp. Okay, it actually was built on a swamp. So it's so humid here, and so they would release, and you'd go home in August, campaign, and get sort of back to your district. But also it's because it was so hot and humid here, and there wasn't air conditioning, and so you sort of got out of the city and you reconvened in September when things were a little bit. Anyway, sorry, and I'm done with
you're
my
right.
little TED Talk.
That's great, and that's why we do the August recess, and it's just
but now we have air conditioning, so.
And so now the heat wave comes in June,
That's right.
super duper hot. The last time it was this hot was last year, but it was mid-August when it got this hot. It was nasty, and one of those days where, I bounce back and forth between glasses and contact lenses. Yesterday was a glasses day, and the second I left my house, they fogged up. It was the weirdest
Blinded.
thing. I think partly it's because you're leaving air conditioning, and then you go in, and so it's like a condensation difference as well, but it was just hilarious. It was rough. By the way, you talk about
you
the days
ran
before air conditioning. Just to sort of give everybody a sort of nostalgic feel of like this is what life was like before air conditioning.
Yeah.
The management at WMAL decided to do that for all the employees and radio hosts there yesterday in the afternoon. You know what? Let's have a throwback day. Back to the good old days.
This is awful.
Of early WMAL. I know. I'm kidding. I'm sure management.
Is this now in job offers and you get air conditioning? It's like one of the. And
exactly.
they remind you occasionally of what the
I
great
don't
benefits,
think management was responsible for it, but apparently our WMAL offices and studios lost air conditioning in the middle of the day yesterday. So poor Derek Hunter, the new kid, as he's prepping and doing his show, he's sweltering. It's good. It's good. You know what?
You ran.
In Finland, they really like to do saunas.
You're not going to talk about your run. I was really afraid you'd drop dead. This is the kind of thing I was like, Larry, please don't die.
Well, I mentioned yesterday, I'm starting in earnest now. I've been flirting with the idea, and for one reason or another, with injuries or what have you, I haven't been able to take it to fruition. But this year I'm feeling strong enough where I began yesterday. This is the first week of my training program to run the Marine Corps Marathon. I've never run a marathon before. So yesterday was the first day, and it's like, I can't not do this. I can't, take a cheat day on day one, right? You got to be committed. So I had a 3-mile run.
This
yesterday.
is one of these things. It just, it's very. I have no desire ever. It's funny. People have these goals in life. Like you're like, I'm finally going to do it. I'm like,
I'm going to climb that mountain.
My husband and I, Darren and I remember we were sitting on the couch. This is before kids, and we were flipping channels, and the Marine Corps Marathon. It was like local coverage of it, and Darren and I looked at each other and go, do they know? And we were sipping coffee, sitting on our couch. I think I had a blanket. And I said, do these people know they can be doing this? You don't actually have to run a marathon. You don't.
It's
actually
just one of those things.
I don't have any desire.
I need to be able to tell myself I can do it.
I had to sit in the car for hours yesterday.
Oh, that's right. You were going to a baseball game. Your son's baseball game.
Well,
and you didn't leave the car?
No. Listen, no. My son had to go up to his school to do. It's a long story, but he had to go up there, and he ended up taking hours. So I sat in the shade in the car with the air conditioning. I mean, it's awful, but it was running almost. I did work on my phone in the car, and then I had to take him to a baseball game, and it was so unbelievably hot. I couldn't stay. He had a ride home, so I couldn't stay. It was just. It was so hot. It was so unpleasant. And I love baseball.
Rough. Yeah. My run was, I did it at 10 a.m. I did it right after the show. Which it was. That's why I did it at that time, because the temperature was going to be the best of the day. But also it was the hardest time for my body because I'd been up for, I usually take a nap, do a little rest before you go out and do that. But it was fine. I hit my timing. But can I just tell you, I was making a puddle when I stood still when I was done. It was so
that's the kind of thing
drenched.
too, where you come in the house and you just continue to perspire for an hour. You just
Meredith was super pleased with that phenomenon. And there's more of it today. 5:23.
Coming up, we're going to talk about The really great news out of the Middle East last night, Israel and Iran appear to be in a ceasefire that was confirmed by the president yesterday. Some questions, there were some missiles launched last night, so there's a little bit of confusion. We'll discuss it all. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. Coming up at 6:35, we'll speak with Hans von Spakovsky about yesterday's very important Supreme Court decision having to do with deportations. It was a win for Trump. 7:05. Gila Franklin Siegel with the Jewish Community Relations Council on the latest state of the Middle East. 7:35. Matt Foldy from the Washington Reporter just got back from Israel. And then at 8:35, Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
You know, the most existential threat to Washington, D.C. and sort of the status quo and the conventional wisdom and all the smart folks, the smart set, you know the guys I'm talking about, the guys who have been here for decades, who know everything, and who tell you exactly how things are going to happen and how things are going to play out and how things should be done. And anybody who comes in and sort of messes with that, like Donald Trump, they become the enemy, right? Trump is hated by so many people in Washington because he decided to approach politics differently, decided to run for office differently, decided to govern differently. And the most existential threat to them is not Trump winning an election or winning re-election. The biggest existential threat to the smart set in Washington, D.C., especially people in the media, is if Trump is right.
Yeah.
If Trump is good, if Trump is effective, if Trump's approach can actually work. And he's already proven in politics that you don't have to be the same sort of blow-dried, out-of-the-package candidate that people have been trying to emulate. And so many consultants get rich off of sort of forcing normal human beings into these weird sort of robots, you know, that all look the same and sound the same and talk the same and sort of all. He already has proven to the political smart set that doesn't work anymore, and you can win a different way. That's bad. Now, imagine he already had a pretty successful economic run in his first term, and things are looking pretty good economically this second term. What if he's actually right about foreign policy, Julie?
I know, God.
I mean, that's the last holdout. That's the last bastion of all the people who show up on Morning Joe, who have gotten us into wars and who have been wrong about foreign policies. You know, the people like Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden somehow turned himself into a respected elder statesman in Washington, D.C., where if you actually look at his record, I think it was former Defense Secretary Gates who said he has literally been wrong about every major foreign policy issue of the last 50 years. And yet if you last long enough and you go on enough Sunday shows and you use the right talking points and you go to the right cocktail parties
and you have the right titles in the Senate. That's right. Yep. And
slap the right backs, you end up being an expert. And anyone who has this contrary opinion to the experts, well, they're a disaster. And we saw it play out. Now, that's a long preamble to where we are right now with regard to Iran and Israel, who are hours into a ceasefire that nobody expected. Nobody saw coming. We were told that Donald Trump had instigated the beginnings of World War III. By the way, I've been told World War III is on the verge for about 30 years now.
Right.
Doesn't seem to happen. If 9/11 didn't take us into World War III, I don't think there's going to be a World War III. That said, yesterday was an absolutely astounding day to rewrite the rule book with regard to foreign policy and national security in the United States. Iran launched a token missile response. And according to President Trump, they warned America before they launched the 6 missiles.
Get out of the way. We're going to,
Got some missiles coming.
Yep.
Need the people in Iran to see us send something back.
Which explains the shelter-in-place rule that went out yesterday.
Yeah, everybody was freaked out. Here it comes, here it comes. Well, it was at our military base in Qatar, and thank God no injuries, let alone deaths. The Qatari government was warned. The United States was warned. The 6 missiles came. 5 of them caused a little bit of damage. 1 of them did nothing. No casualties at all, and that was it. And then within 2 hours of that attack, President Trump, at 6 p.m., I heard this. I heard the great one, Mark Levin, read it on the air, and I'll read it to you now. Congratulations to everyone. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. And upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During such ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. For Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. And at 1 a.m., President Trump put out a statement that said the ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And just like that, it's over.
It's incredible.
It's over. I mean, this is what peace through strength looks like, I suppose.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting when somehow all this sort of peace prizes and all of the awards manage to skip over Trump, because this is, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. Yeah. And I know it's not over. I know it's complicated. I know there's lots to come. I mean, even overnight, there were missiles, apparently Israel, there were missiles coming from Iran or in that region. And so there are some questions about whether this will last. But it is an incredible moment. And I don't think many people saw it coming.
Well, it's Trump putting peace first and putting it forward in the conversation. Every single conversation that President Trump has had about the situation in Iran and leading up to our bombing run and post-bombing run, peace has always been in the backdrop there. Not war, peace. And you use your military to attain peace and to ensure peace. That's what I was always told as a child of the Reagan era. And it seems like Trump seems to be more Reagan-y than a lot of the people who actually worked with Reagan at the time. At least it appears that way. We'll see. Let like you said, smart people will be cautious. But if you're not optimistic and hopeful and in some way admire exactly how this has played out, well, there's something wrong with you. It means that you're motivated by more than just the obvious facts in front of your face. But this town, the fuel that keeps the engines running in Washington is cynicism. Yeah. And we'll continue to see it, and we'll give you some reactions from the usual suspects as well as the media coming up as the morning progresses. But I would echo President Trump's initial statement here. Congratulations to all. It's 5:44.
WMAL, making sense of the headlines, because common sense isn't so common. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
All right, I mentioned that at 6:35 we're going to speak with Hans von Spakovsky, formerly the Justice Department, now at the Heritage Foundation, one of our legal eagles. Get his take on yesterday's Supreme Court decision that allows President Trump, or any administration for that matter, I call this a Trump win. It's a win for the Constitution. It's a win for the presidency and the executive branch's authority to manage our immigration policies, as the law would state. The Supreme Court has allowed for third country deportations. Now, this has to do with deporting an individual who is in our country illegally, but for one reason or another, their native country will not take them back, either refusing to cooperate with the United States or refusing to take back these individuals for one reason or another. That doesn't mean we're stuck with them. we should be able to send them to a country that will take them. And if you don't want that to happen to you, don't come into our country illegally. It seems pretty simple. Well, the Supreme Court had been asked to make a decision over this. There's so many lower court challenges on this, as we've seen for the entire first 5 months of the Trump presidency. And they said Monday that the Trump administration's request to stay the lower court injunction that had blocked them from deporting individuals to third world countries would be allowed. So basically, Trump can continue and the Trump administration can continue this policy. And this is a great moment for people who are in the country illegally, who don't want this to happen to them because of whatever reason is going on with their home country. They can self-deport, or they can leave themselves. They can go to another country if they wish to that has more lax immigration policies. Good luck finding that.
Yeah, good luck finding one, yeah.
But you can be deported to a third country, and that's what's going to happen.
Not surprisingly, the three liberal judges, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown-Jackson, dissented. So not at all surprised by that. But this is decisive.
Yeah, it is, and I couldn't quite get the legal reason why those three justices opposed it. I was trying to read it, and we'll ask Hans about his legal opinion, but it appears as though they think it's mean and it's wrong. And it could, by the way, it could be a mean policy. It could be, morally reprehensible. You may find
a nicer policy. Find a country where you can just walk in and stay, and not just stay, but get free services and sort of live off the taxpayer. Find a country where that is allowed.
And you can be a Supreme Court justice and find this, that it offends your sensibilities and your own moral integrity, but that's not your job. Your job isn't to say, this is wrong and it gives me the sads. I don't care. It's what the Constitution allows the executive branch to do, and what our immigration laws passed by the legislative branch dictate. That's all.
Yeah, and
That's
that seems to be a real misunderstanding with particularly Ketanji Brown Jackson, who seems to not like the Constitution and seems to see it as her job on the Supreme Court to ignore the Constitution. So a little concerning, but not surprised that she's up there and was appointed by Biden.
The federal judge in Boston presided over a class action lawsuit from migrants who were challenging deportations to third world countries. This is from the Fox News write-up, including South Sudan, El Salvador, and other countries, including Costa Rica, Guatemala, and others that the administration has reportedly eyed in its ongoing wave of deportations. Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to resume quick deportations of certain immigrants to countries other than their own without advance warning. So everyone's screaming due process, due process, due process. Chris Van Hollen about their Maryland man and there needs to be due process. Okay, due process is over now. The Supreme Court has decided. So if you don't like it, write a new law, make the case for it, and pass it. That's what your job is. You're a senator. Not to block the executive branch, but to actually legislate from your branch. It's 5:52.